So I'm Pam Boyle Rodriguez. I'm with the City of Palo Alto Stormwater Compliance Program. And we help the city stay compliant with a lot of different regulations regarding stormwater management. And we're also just try to be really involved with trying to help the city do more, especially now with stormwater management. As Sherri said, we're really trying to keep runoff on site and clean it as much as possible before it gets to our creeks and the bay. And I wanted one of my colleagues to introduce herself.
Hey, so my name's Isabel Zaharchuk. I'm the associate engineer working for the Stormwater Compliance Program. I know I've spoken to some of you. I help oversee kind of the administration of our stormwater rebate program. So I'll talk at the end of Pam's presentation, but if you ever have a stormwater rebate question, you'll be talking with me. So put a name to the face.
And a lot of what Sherri said, I'm going to try not to repeat. And it's not a very long presentation. We just wanted to introduce what we do and talk a little bit about our rebate program. And you can see here the 4 types of rebates that we currently provide. We used to provide a rebate for green roofs. We've decided to take that off the table, and we're working to add a rebate for rain gardens. Currently, you can ask for a rebate through our program and then also ask for a rebate through the Santa Clara Valley Water District. You have to go through 2 different application processes. We're working with them so that we can just create a more streamlined version. So that'll hopefully be coming within the next 6 months to a year. So everyone here probably already knows this, but just to make sure, we have 2 separate systems of pipes in the city of Palo Alto, similar from most of the Bay Area, except really the city of San Francisco. About 75% of San Francisco is combined and about 15% is separate. So the city of Palo Alto has one set of pipes that's getting everything from your dishwashers, your kitchen, your bathrooms, your washing machine, and it's all going to one pipe that takes all the flow to the sanitary treatment plant or the water quality treatment plant. We have some information in the back about that, and we also have tours at the treatment plant if you want to know what actually happens. It all gets treated through a lot of different levels so that before it gets discharged to the bay, it meets a lot of different very strict water quality requirements. Now on the other side, on the right, we have the storm drain system, and that's the stuff that's coming from your house, from buildings, from parking lots, from streets. And as you all know, when it rains, everything gets picked up. I'm sure you've seen a lot of trash go down the curb and gutter. It all goes down into the inlet, and those pipes go straight to our creeks. Some of them go straight to the bay, but that is why we really care about protecting what's going into our storm drain inlets, because it's not getting filtered, it's not getting treated, unless it's going through some kind of man-made device. It's going straight into our creeks in the bay, and obviously we all love the bay here. That's why we all live here, one of the reasons. And so we're doing all that we can to protect the water quality of our downstream receiving waters. And this is an example of a lot of the different pollutants that we run into around here. The top 2 are related to restaurants. And so some restaurants are better at housekeeping practices than others. But generally, when we go to eat at a restaurant, we're just going through the front door. We're not really worried about anything else except how good the food tastes and what kind of customer service we're getting. But our team is kind of worried about the other side, too. It's like, how are they managing their practices? What are they doing with their waste, their oil, and all that? And how can we keep it from getting into pavement and getting into our storm drain system? There's a car wash. Generally, if you can keep an eye out for car washes that are doing this. If you run into this, please report it to us, and we can talk to them about doing something better to manage their stormwater. And also, ideally, you're going to a car wash where they recycle their water, and they have a treatment system in place. Unfortunately, in the middle, that could be in any neighborhood, because sometimes people have older cars or vehicles and they leak oil. They might not notice. They might not realize that it's going to go down the curb gutter to our creeks. So we need to educate people. So if you can help educate your neighbors. And the one on the right is a construction site. So also we go around and we inspect construction sites, but we sometimes can't get to all of them, or we sometimes might not get there that day that happens. So please help us keep an eye out on that, and you can also report that to us. So just, you already heard about this from Sherri, but this is an example of what can happen in our neighborhoods. So it's not as bad as commercial sites, construction sites, car washes, but we do, depending, as you heard, it depends on the type of roof that you have. Depends if you have a lawn and what you put on your lawn. Sometimes people aren't cleaning up after their dogs. Sometimes there's leaky cars. Sometimes people want to do work on their car because they want to do some, they have older cars. For example, we have a colleague who has a lot of old cars that he works on himself. But, everything's going down to the street, into that pipe, and into that creek. So one thing that we're doing at the city is we're working to create something that's called green stormwater infrastructure, which is also a type of measure to treat stormwater. So I'm sorry, it's another term that I'm throwing at you. And let me see. I'm actually not sure where this is from. Isabel, do you know where this is from? Okay, sorry about that. So what green stormwater infrastructure is, it's designed in such a way to capture our particular size storm. Generally, it is a 2-year storm. It's also designed with gravel and soil on top of that. So gravel maybe around 18 inches on the left at least. Then there's soil that has mostly sand and compost, and then there's specific plants that are picked out. And then they usually, sometimes they receive sidewalk runoff, but a lot of times they receive the roof runoff. So these are like inlets like you would see, but instead of going to a pipe, they're intended to go to these are sometimes called stormwater planters. Sometimes they're bioretention areas. There's a lot of different terms, unfortunately, out there, but in generally, we call them stormwater planters. This tree is probably connected to this under this sidewalk, so that it's receiving the runoff too. And what we're moving toward in the city of Palo Alto is trying to put some of these more out in our right-of-way so that we can capture more of the runoff and keep it from getting to the creeks. Now these can't go everywhere because, as Sherri said, we have a very high water table in the city of Palo Alto. Higher than some of Mountain View and definitely Menlo Park and some other cities. Because of where we're situated, we definitely have a high water table in a lot of the cities. So we can't do this everywhere, and if we do, they might need to be lined so that once they overflow, they do go to our storm drain system, because otherwise the water table is going to rise too much and it's going to cause an issue.
Yeah, I'm a very clumsy pedestrian, and I'm a little bit concerned how deep they are.
So he has a concern about how deep they are, and that is something that has come up. There are some different type of solutions. This right here this curb was probably put there for that reason as well. But there are some municipalities that are putting little fences around here. They also think about where they might place them, so they might not place them by areas where there's more pedestrians or schools. Right now there's a Charleston Aristodero project that's going on, and there was one put into Hoover that we're probably going to put a gate along, because right now it's open next to the school and it's not really it's not safe. So we do need to think about public safety as well. Well, it depends. Probably around Mitchell Park, it's probably around 20 feet below the ground. Depends when it rains, depends how wet the year before was, but when we get closer to the freeway, it can go up to 10 feet, even 5 feet below the ground. So there's definitely some folks who are, getting a lot of upwelling when they have rain in some of the neighborhoods, like by Greer Park, for example. Did anyone else have a question? So the top or the bottom? So this is, talk about a big cistern. Sherri showed you what you can put in a residential area. This is what can go in maybe a large park, or maybe it's going to be a large parking lot. But generally where these are going are parks, especially a park that's either being renovated where they're creating a new field, or they're changing a vacant land or into a park or something like that. These are kind of basically hollow tubes that can hold water. This is probably mostly sand, sometimes it's gravel, and this will hold probably 300,000 gallons or something like that. And a lot of times what can be done is that this can be then pumped up after it's filtered and it gets tested, and then it can be used to infiltrate that to irrigate the soccer field or whatever else is at the park, and we can get off potable water at parks. Because as you all know, right now, unless we're reusing and capturing rain, we're using drinking water to irrigate, which is not a good idea for the long term for the state of California. And Sherri just said it's not good for soils either. This one? The cistern or this? Residents could do this, but certainly not without permission. We don't have a system in place right now a formal process in place. We'd have to talk about, the big issue is not just the construction of it, but the maintenance. And so when these things go in place, and especially if they're in the right of way, there has to be a maintenance agreement set up with the city, and the property owner has to take care of these measures. And so if a development is at least 10,000 square feet of impervious area, or if it's a parking lot, a gas station, a restaurant, a auto care facility, then it would only be 5,000 square feet and above. They trigger stormwater treatment requirements. So if you go, for example, that's why Mitchell Park has stormwater treatment, is because it triggered the requirements. If you go to other places, there's triggers for stormwater treatment. So you'll see a lot of the new businesses, if they're over 10,000 square feet, a lot of the mixed-use buildings, they're going to have some kind of stormwater treatment on site. And they have an agreement with the city, and we inspect them every year. And we go and check and make sure these measures are being maintained. And if they're not, then we work with them to get them in compliance. So if it's a single-family residential development, in Mayfield, for example, each house may have stormwater treatment. And that maintenance agreement, just so you know, is attached to the deed. It gets recorded with the Santa Clara County. So when there's a change in ownership, then that new owner should know about that. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and we do run into times when someone didn't know they had a bioretention area in their front yard, and they paved over it and put in a driveway, and then we have to figure out how to deal with that situation. So if you're interested in doing something like this in your neighborhood, please talk to us. We love that idea, but we're definitely concerned about maintenance, because let's say that you're really interested, but then you move in 5 years, and then the next owner has this in front of their house, and they might not be interested in maintaining it. It could cause a problem for the whole neighborhood. So we're leaning toward not really putting these in neighborhoods, because neighborhoods don't have as many pollutants as where we have commercial areas. But there's still a lot that's being determined in the city about what kind of facilities and where we want to put them. Oh, by the way, this is Pervious parking lot at the top right, which you've already seen. So why are we thinking about putting these in? GSI, as you know, is Green Stormwater Infrastructure. Sometimes you might hear the term green infrastructure. We threw that S in there because sometimes green infrastructure might also include an open space area or a park that doesn't have stormwater treatment. So we're very specific. We're calling it GSI. And, you know, we're lucky we live in a city with a lot of trees, but in a lot of places, there's a lot less trees, there's a lot less green space. So putting in GSI can make a big difference. But we also get all these benefits. I apologize, this light's not really showing up, but as you already know, we can capture the flow and we can either reuse it or at least let it infiltrate. We can reduce a lot of pollutants, a lot of things that, you know, we have, for example, pollutants coming from our tires, from our brakes, from different uses at businesses and homes. And so that'll go on the street, we can capture that. We can reduce urban heat island effect. We're looking at putting a lot more trees into this GSI areas. In Charleston and Rostadero, some of these have been included with the traffic calming features. So if we're putting these into our streets, we're really going to think about where are there plans that our Department of Transportation might also want to increase pedestrian facilities, might want to add safety to bike riders or schools. And so we're going to work with them and see, you know, how can we work together and try to, you know, get the most bang for our buck. And we've already talked about Mitchell Park. We do have a green roof here, and we also have bioretention area. And so just a note about one reason we took green roofs off the table for the stormwater rebate program is because they're really hard to maintain. And that's one thing that we learned. Not only is it a lot more complicated to build, but we've had a lot of trouble maintaining our green roof here. We've had a lot of different bugs come in. The irrigation sometimes gets into problems, and it's hard to fix because you have to go to the roof. If you get clogs, you need more pumping, you need more energy to get irrigation up there, and you definitely have to irrigate that all year to keep it living. So we're not against green roofs, but it might not be the best idea if you're a resident because it's just a lot of work, unless you're really into it and you want to do it. And this is that bioretention area that Sherri mentioned. So if you look right here, this is pervious pavement. Usually pervious pavement is not recommended to drive on very much because it can get clogged a lot. So that's why we've only put it in the parking spaces. When you go out there, you'll see that where most of the driving is going to be on asphalt, the parking is in the pervious area. But we've also run into needing to vacuum it because there's a lot of traffic in and out. So if, let's say you put pervious pavement in your driveway, you're probably not going to have that much of an issue, but you should still try to maybe pressure wash it every few years. You'll know if it's ponding, you'll know that it needs maintenance. You know, in an area like a library, especially this library is so popular that, we vacuum it more than once a month. And actually this morning I noticed some ponding, so we'll have to check it out. So what we want to do is really get away from getting all the stormwater here and getting it to areas like pervious pavement or bioretention areas. This is what's being called gray infrastructure. And stuff like this, GSI, is called green infrastructure. So we're really wanting to start to go from gray to green. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to get rid of all our pipes because we don't have enough room to put these in everywhere. We certainly don't have enough funding for maintenance to put these into every corner. And if it rains too much, this is going to fill up. And so we still need pipes. So it's going to be a combination of things. But at least we're moving. We're moving toward changing it up a little bit. And so if you all want to see what we've done, Isabel and I put our hearts into this for a long time, for about a year and a half. And this outlines what we, as a city, would like to do. It's a very first phase. It looks at properties that the city owns. It doesn't look at streets yet because there's still a lot of work to really prioritize where we want to work, but that's what I meant by when we're working with the Department of Transportation to do some prioritization of maybe which streets work best. But if this is an ideal street, it's not meant to be a street in Palo Alto, but you see assume traffic is going that way. You have curb openings right here in these bioretention areas. You have a bike lane. This is supposed to be pervious pavement. You have a stormwater planter capturing runoff from the building. And you can't see it so well here, but if you look here, this is where the tree is planted. We can put in some, almost looks like milk crates. They're not drawn into here, but if you picture like a huge milk crate that allows the roots to go through the openings and go under the sidewalk, and also allows the water to infiltrate. And we can put special soil there, some soil right around the roots for the tree to grow, and then surround it with stormwater treatment soil. We can also help the tree grow, reduce heat island effect, capture stormwater. So these are some of the things we're talking about. So the plan really outlines what these things are and what we are moving toward as a city. And if you can't put green stormwater infrastructure somewhere, what we're also talking about in our plan is, if you're thinking about retrofitting something at your commercial building or at your residential building, one of the great things you can do is think about how to get disconnected from the storm drain system. So you've already heard a lot about that with the rain barrels. So I'm going to move on. And you've already seen a lot of this. These are just examples that we also put in our plan. This is capturing roof runoff. This is as well. And this is actually what would be called a bioretention area, and the reason that it's not a rain garden, more like this one, is because this is engineered with certain plants. It has certain soil. This is connected to the storm drain system, and actually this should be more raised so that this area can receive more runoff, and then it overflows to here. So I'm actually going to let Isabel talk to you about our stormwater rebate program because, as she says, she's your primary contact. Go ahead, Isabel.
Hey everyone. So Sherri did a great job talking about all the different types of rainwater harvesting measures that we have that you can implement at your own household. So now that you're all excited to put these measures in place, we just wanted to talk a little bit more about what the Palo Alto specific process is. And understand that Valley Water also has rebates available throughout the county. But just for the purposes of the Palo Alto residents, we just wanted to touch on kind of some of the items to look out for. So right now we have 3 different rainwater harvesting measures available. So rain barrels, permeable pavement, and cisterns. And Pam mentioned that we're also going to be coming online with rain gardens as well within the next maybe about 6 months to a year. And right now Valley Water does offer a rebate for rain gardens. So if you'd like to put one into your household before the city has a program in place, then you can definitely reach out to Valley Water and get that rebate from them. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight, right now, like I said, we offer 3 different amounts. So for rain barrels, it's $50 per rain barrel. For permeable pavement, it's $1.50 per square foot. And then for cisterns, it's 15 cents per gallon. Since for all residential rebates, we have a max of $1,000. So just another item to highlight. And so the website at the very bottom here, cityofpaloalto.org/stormwater. If you just go to that link, you'll see all of our information about the rebates, and it'll have specific information about the different types, our application, which can be a paper application as well as online. And then one thing I definitely wanted to highlight was the terms and conditions. So I know Sherri really drove this point home where you really need to check in with your municipality and make sure that you get the proper approvals before putting in a system, especially something like a cistern where you might be putting it underground, or something like a little more intensive like permeable pavement versus a rain barrel. So definitely check out our terms and conditions. The city does require that you submit your application before you actually do any construction. We do want to make sure that the city staff, me and all the other folks on our stormwater team have a chance to check out the application. Make sure that when you're wanting to install permeable pavement, that it's actually going to be permeable and that it'll meet the right specs. So definitely check out our terms and conditions on our website. We are in the process of kind of updating our website a little bit. We'll have better visuals. We'll have specific applications for some of the rebates. So it's not online yet, but we are looking at cleaning up our website, making it a little more user-friendly. So that'll be coming online soon as well. And then if you haven't already, we have really great visual. It's two-sided, one page. I think Pam's got it in her hand. So the one side has the stormwater rebates that we offer right now with our contact information, and then the other side actually has the cover for our GSI plan, our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Plan that Pam just mentioned. So it's got the contact information on there, and then on the back table to the right, I also have my personal business card. So the sheet that Pam has our general contact information for the office. So if you do have any rebate questions, you can call the general line. It'll make its way back to me anyways, so you can either grab my personal business card or contact our general office as well. Yeah, anytime you guys have rebate questions, I'll be the one most likely answering your questions. So just wanted to introduce myself. But oh, yeah, and then Joanna has copies right now, so if you want one right now, you can raise your hand and Joanna will pass it out. We've got a couple in the front. So yeah, everyone, thanks for coming. Kevin, I don't know if you want to take over the reins now, but thanks everyone for your time.
Did anyone have any more questions?
It's going back to when you were speaking earlier about the permeable concrete bonding. So what about permeable pavers? Is that as much a problem? Or could you talk about maintenance for them?
So she's asking about what kind of maintenance pervious pavers need, and it's similar to what pervious concrete needs. We have, those of you who live in Palo Alto may know about the Southgate neighborhood, where we have some bioretention areas and we have pervious, crosswalks. And those have gotten clogged a little bit, and also some of the pavers have moved. And that's more of the issue you will get with pavers, is sometimes, especially because we're in an earthquake-prone area, sometimes they tend to move a little bit, especially if they get driven on more. And the ones I'm talking about get driven on by cars. So I wouldn't personally suggest them for driveways, probably more like pervious concrete or something like that. But they also can get clogged. The filling, the spacing in between them can get clogged. As Sherri mentioned, the interlocking pavers work a little bit better because the spacing between them is much less. And they're called interlocking because they actually do connect with each other. And so they tend to work better than just the pavers where you have the gravel in between. But I don't think there's as much of an issue in residential areas. I don't know about driveways and pavers and driveways, Sherri? Okay, Sherri said she hasn't run into issues, and then I think it would be fine. That would be my guess. Mm-hmm.
In between questions right now, just a reminder, if you didn't do so yet, please fill out the surveys. Shelby and myself will be collecting them, and we'll do the drawing, but we'll still be answering questions. But while we're answering them, we'll go around and collect them.
Was there anyone else? Okay, thank you.